Hello students, welcome to the new Mr. Orlando recording studio. As I'm awaiting test results, I am able to make some videos for you on my home recording setup. So we are going to discuss theme today, and then we're also going to look at how to cite and find that evidence to support theme. These are two really big ideas. Theme is obviously an enormous part of literature. It's even a method by which Amazon Prime sorts their books. You can sort books by theme. So I think that's super cool. And then finding evidence is something that you're going to have to do on all of your tests, all of your keystones, all of your SATs, blah, 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 blah. Finding evidence is really important. So let's get started. I've already made a video discussing theme and what it is, but I'm going to briefly recap in order to reinforce that instruction. So first, theme is a series of repeated ideas within a text. It's that simple, okay? A theme is an idea that continues to crop up over and over again within a movie, a book, a film. Any work of literature or art can have a theme. Even a series of paintings can have a theme. If we look at Pablo Picasso's art, he has a lot of theme dealing with sort of the depravity of man and how, like, humans have a lot of problems. Humans hurt people, humans are ugly or misshapen, and these ideas, these themes pop up over and over again in Pablo Picasso's work. But we can also have themes in even just like pop culture. Pablo Picasso was pop culture. Movies like Avengers have very, very powerful themes. So Avengers Infinity War is something that I'm going to discuss a little later in this video, and we're going to find themes in it. But before I do that, I want to mention the concept of a moral. This moral is oftentimes confused with a theme. There's one really big, easy way to remember the difference between a theme and a moral. A theme is an idea that is found within the text by the reader. A moral is a lesson that is put into the text by the author. Okay, so themes you find and identify. A moral, the person writing the story is trying to teach you. Examples would be like Aesop's fables, the old stories of like Little Red Riding Hood and the Boy Who Cried Wolf, or the Three Little Pigs, all of which involve a wolf. It's a big idea. So basically this idea of a wolf is some danger that's going to come and hurt you, right? In all those stories, Little Red Riding Hood, the Three Little Pigs, and the Boy Who Cried Wolf, all of them have a big bad wolf who's going to come and hurt the main character. But the main character either fails or succeeds in being safe by following certain moral codes. So the Three Little Pigs, two of the little pigs get eaten by the wolf because they don't heed their father's instruction, and they build a house that's made out of bad material. They build a house made of sticks, and they build a house made of hay. And obviously neither of those are straw technically, but whatever. Neither of those are going to be a good house. And finally, the one that builds the house out of bricks is the one that survives the onslaught of the big bad wolf. The moral of the story is to build your home strong. This could obviously be perceived as a metaphor, like, be resilient against change. But actually, in the original telling, the wolf was supposed to represent a storm. So really, the moral of the story was that children should build their homes strong to avoid having them knocked over by strong winds or a storm. So I said that we were going to observe theme through the lens of the Avengers movies. And I'm actually going to look at 3 different Avengers movies. We're going to look at the first Avengers movie, we're going to look at Age of Ultron, and we're going to look at the Avengers Infinity War. The theme that we're looking at is one that pops up over and over again throughout these movies. And it is, what is the value of one life compared to the value of many lives? Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, what is one character willing to sacrifice to protect others? We see all the time that heroes are willing to sacrifice their own lives. We see that they're willing to fight off the bad guys and say, my life is less important than the lives of all these people that I'm going to save. Let's look at what I mean by that. In the first Avengers movie, Tony Stark is willing to sacrifice himself at the end of it. He's willing to die. He says, "Here is my life. I'm willing to sacrifice it by bringing this weapon up into the atmosphere and fly it into space." And he only survives by pure luck. But the next movie contains Avengers: Age of Ultron contains somebody sacrificing themselves for the same kind of purpose, and they do so completely willingly, and they do actually end up sacrificing their life, and that's Quicksilver when he sacrifices himself to save one team member. So think about that. In the first movie, Tony Stark is willing to sacrifice himself to save millions of people, and they see that as a noble sacrifice. Quicksilver is willing to sacrifice his life for just one person. Okay, so now we know that according to Avengers, one person and many people are equivalent. Now, in Avengers Infinity War and in Avengers Endgame, we also have this concept of sacrifice being brought up again. And it's between sacrificing Vision and sacrificing Gamora. The villain, Thanos, is willing to sacrifice his own adopted daughter, basically, to get his goals. But the Avengers are unwilling to sacrifice Vision to get what they want. Both characters have people that love them, and yet they say, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to sacrifice you for the greater good. Even though Vision would probably be willing to do that. They fight and fight and fight and say, no, we don't want that to happen. And Thanos is willing to make that sacrifice, and Thanos gets what he wants. And it is not until the Avengers change their ways in Endgame and are willing to sacrifice a team member that they finally get their solution. And that again is another conflict of sacrifice. Hawkeye and Black Widow fight in order to determine who can be the sacrifice. And ultimately, Black Widow defeats Hawkeye and is able to sacrifice herself because she says Hawkeye is going to save a family member, whereas Black Widow, she sees herself as unworthy. She says, no, I don't have a family. I don't have anybody that cares about me. So I can be sacrificed and it's fine. If you sacrifice yourself, your family's going to miss you. So how then would we go about writing this and defending it in an essay? Example of an essay prompt as if I was answering it like a student. Now, I have not written a complete essay here, but I have written the first couple of paragraphs answering a challenging question. The prompt is, choose a movie you like and identify one of its major themes. Defend that theme using examples from the story. This is something that you might receive on Edgenuity. You've received prompts saying, write about a famous person that you like and describe why you like them, or write a personal narrative about, how this person helped you. So this is a perfectly acceptable prompt. I've taken this idea of sacrifice in Avengers and begun to write an essay about it. So let's read it. It says, the Avengers films are popular, not just for their action, but for their danger. Characters can and do perish over the course of the movies. How and why these characters die is a major factor in the plot of the films. Sometimes characters die for one person, sometimes they die for many. The theme that Avengers presents us with is, what is the value of one life compared to another? Avengers gives us opportunities to answer this theme by presenting us with moments of sacrifice in Avengers: Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. I'm going to highlight this because this is the thesis of my writing. The rest of this contains supporting details that support this thesis. In Avengers, the climax of the movie involves Tony Stark's willingness to sacrifice himself. His death is foreshadowed by the conflict he causes among the team members when on the Avengers flying aircraft carrier. He is made out to be an antagonist, and therefore his sacrifice would be acceptable. His sacrifice is preceded by the death of another character, the beloved Philip Coulson. Coulson's death is seen as unnecessary and infuriating, but Tony's would have been acceptable. This leads us to the possible conclusion that numbers determines whether or not a sacrifice is acceptable. So I'm going to highlight this because this is a major supporting piece of evidence. Well, technically, this is all evidence. So that's evidence. This is a possible conclusion. Next, in Age of Ultron, another significant sacrifice comes in the form of Quicksilver's death. He sacrifices himself to save one team member and a small child. Based on this information, one might assume that even one life is worth it. Surely a 2-to-1 trade is worth it, right? So once again, I'm highlighting this. Yet the next movie, Infinity War, defies that conclusion. The Avengers have the opportunity to sacrifice Vision to save the universe, but they refuse to, leading to the deaths of many people. Why were they unwilling to sacrifice one person when trillions of people across the universe needed help? Ultimately, it seems the answer isn't truly about numbers. The theme of sacrifice is driven by something different. And now I will answer that based on this evidence, right? They tell us having more than... They tell us that having a 2-to-1 trade for life is apparently enough, and yet they're unwilling to sacrifice one person to save trillions. What's the deal? Why? And it's because it's not about numbers. It's not about one person saving 10 people. It's about the love that that character has for others and the love that other characters have for them. So the theme of sacrifice is driven by something different. Love. All right, and now I can begin to defend this argument. This is my conclusion, that the theme of Avengers isn't really about sacrifice. This theme of some characters die for one person. What is the value of one life compared to another? The value is the love that those characters have for one another. So we look at Thanos, right? Willing to sacrifice Gamora, right? He loves her, but not more than he loves the power that he's going to get, right? And then we have Hawkeye, lives, and we have Black Widow sacrifices herself, right? Why? Because Hawkeye has family that loves him, Black Widow does not. So why do they not sacrifice Vision? Because he and Scarlet Witch are together. They have a deep emotional connection. They have a bond. They are deeply in love, and they're unwilling to sacrifice that relationship. If Vision had no one to care about but himself, he probably would have sacrificed himself, and others probably would have allowed him to do it. But they ultimately could not do that because they could not break apart the love between those two people, whereas Thanos was willing to do that. So it takes a villain, it takes somebody who is cold and cutthroat to make that decision to sacrifice one person for your own personal goals. And that's why Black Widow, somebody with a dark past and somebody who is at her core more cutthroat than the rest of them, she is able to make that call. So this is how you defend a theme. You present that theme within a thesis. You use evidence. Now look at how much evidence I have. Almost all of this is evidence drawn right from the text. And my conclusions come at the end of paragraphs in order to solidify the ideas and help transfer you or transition you into the next paragraph. Notice my use of transition words here, next and yet. Okay, I'll highlight those so you can see them. These transition words are very helpful. And finally, right, I would end with some kind of conclusion. Now, I'm not going to write the conclusion here because I've taken more than enough of your time. But this is the kind of structure that I want to see in your essays. I know this looks a little long, and I did pick a complicated topic, but easily, I should be getting essays at least this long. This is completely reasonable. A good 3-paragraph essay with a strong introduction and thesis, a significant amount of evidence, and a statement of your ideas or your conclusions in the second paragraph, and then some other paragraph at the end to wrap up your ideas and maybe state the conclusion again. So that is a good way, in my opinion, to find evidence, to state evidence, and to organize your evidence in an essay. Okay. So thank you for watching. Your bingo number is 2. Bingo number is 2. All right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.